Hi, I'm Leah Amico, three-time Olympic gold medalist with USA softball. I was also a three-time national champion at the University of Arizona. I started out as a pitcher, got recruited, and then I played outfield, which is what allowed me to play on the Olympic team. I played right field in 2 Olympics, and then my senior season, I went to first base, as well as on the Olympic team. I ended up my career at first base in the Athens game in 2004. So the 3 gold medals, and I've been able to travel the country, not only playing the sport, but helping teach this sport that I love.
As a former first baseman, I appreciate everything the first baseman does that gets overlooked. So you're the heart of the team, even though no one realizes that.
Well, I have a big mouth, and so when I was pitching, obviously I had to be
right.
in the zone. But when I went to first base, I was able to help direct the infield and cheer on my pitcher, and kind of like you said, just command the field.
Right. Well, tell me, how did you get started? Did you start in youth ball? What got you going into softball? What got you juiced about it?
Yes, I was born in Southern California. I was the firstborn, and my dad loved baseball but didn't have a lot of opportunity with it. And so when I was 6 years old, they just went down to the local league and they signed me up. And he said that the first season he was working so much, so he wasn't out there much. And he said all of a sudden people started coming up and saying, "Wow, we can really see you've been working with Leah." And he's like, "No, I really haven't." And so, immediately people were like, "She's a lefty. You should get her into pitching lessons." So when I was 8 years old, I started taking pitching lessons, which this is back in the day. People did not do that back then. Very few people had instructors. And so we would drive 45 minutes away, which was unheard of at that time, not today's world, but in the past. And it was, that kind of began my journey. And I just fell in love with the sport.
Well, as we were mentioning off the air, I'm used to being around little kids that learn how to play. And the enjoyment, the camaraderie, all that is just, it's astounding, especially in your sport. I think more so than anything else. I think it's almost like you have to enjoy your teammates or you're not going to be able to play.
Yeah, absolutely. That was such a huge, crucial part, I feel like, of my success, not as a youngster learning to love the game, but literally until I finished as an Olympian at 29 years old. I mean, really, I feel like that fed me. I look back and I'm like, I love sports. I'm competitive, but I am somebody who thrives in a team environment, helping my teammates, looking to them, to be able to pick me up when I need it. And just that encouragement, having fun on that field. I mean, some of my best memories to this day as, a 45-year-old woman now are from the softball field, and memories that they helped shape me into the woman I've become.
Now, when you go from one youth team to another, to a high school team, to a college team, to an Olympic team, do those relationships carry over?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing. I just remember 14 years old was when I won my first national championship. So our team from Southern California went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, had unbelievable memories. I'll never forget us being able to see ourselves being interviewed by the news, them showing clips of our games and thinking, what is this? I mean, this is amazing. And that really birthed in my heart, the goal of playing college softball. And so like you said, I had my high school friends that I grew up on an everyday basis, my travel ball friends who we experienced these amazing, opportunities to travel the country and compete together. College, who, just a huge part of your life where you're really kind of out on your own, deciding what you want to do and who you want to become. And then obviously the Olympians. And yes, like I would say, that 14 under team, I mean, we were at in each other's weddings, we were at each other's baby showers, doing that life together. And then obviously the collegiate ones, again, you're kind of in a different stage. And to this day, I mean, these are some of my greatest friendships.
And that when we look at sport, and this is kind of what this is all about, it's more than just going out on the field and performing. I think anyone can do that if given the God-given ability. But when you add that aspect to it, that's what carries over into life.
Absolutely. There's so many intangibles and unbelievable, life lessons and experiences that shape you as an athlete. And for me, again, like what I learned from being a good teammate and what, made others better and how I became better. And just, I was constantly able to just compare and to learn and to grow. And to me, there's nothing better. I do, for Westwood One Sports, I do the Women's College World Series finals every year in Oklahoma City. And I played in the championship game 4 times. We won it 3 times and we got second place the other year. So I experienced that as an athlete. But now all these years later, I'm a commentator and I'm calling the games. And the neatest thing is right before they'll play their 3-game series, best of 3, we'll interview the top athletes and leaders on the team. And it never comes down to people talking about, well, she hit this many home runs and here's why we're good. And she, struck out this many hitters. No, those things are taking place, but they constantly come back to the reason we are playing for a national championship today is because the trust we have in each other, the way we have each other's backs, and we will go to war and belief, like knowing that my teammate means everything. And it's all about that team chemistry. You do not win gold medals by being the best 15 players in the world. You win it by having team chemistry and then allowing your skills to take over.
And that leads me into the question I was going to ask a little bit down the road. When you get to, okay, I've been selected to the Olympic team or I've made the Olympic team, what's that first thought?
Oh, yeah. So my very first one, I was one of the younger athletes, and it was the first time softball was ever in the Olympic Games. And so there was so much emotion heading into this tryout. For us younger athletes, we were just excited. We couldn't wait to be there. We wanted this opportunity. But some of these women were in their mid-30s, and they had literally put their lives on hold for the opportunity to represent the United States of America. So they end up naming 15 of us. And a teammate, Laura Berg, and myself were 2 of the younger 4 athletes. We had a high school senior, 18 years old, and then we had 3 of us that were 21 years old. And so we get this, note that says, okay, you're on the team, your name's on the list. And so, this excitement, one, you kind of held your emotions in check because there were so many dreams that have just been dashed. But then once it was just the team together, then it was just this, okay, now for me, I was one of the younger athletes. So I was very much looking to the Dot Richardsons, the Michelle Smiths, the Lisa Fernandezes, the Sheila Dowdies, the ones who had been the veterans on the team for many, many years before I even started coming into this process. So I just knew, and I'll tell you again, you talk about like teamwork and how important that is. I really looked to them, and they took us younger athletes under their wing and made us feel like you belong here. We're a team. And that, again, is why we went on to win the gold medal, I believe.
And that's the thing I don't think people understand when they talk about the veterans and the younger people. It's not a competition amongst yourselves, even though it is. Yes. But the competition is to make each other better, so we're better and we're a better team. And sometimes Absolutely. I think we misunderstand that when we're competing with other people and we're still on the same team. Yeah, sometimes we get selfish about it.
Yes, no, definitely. I think that is we want to give our very best. Every day we should go out and challenge to get better every single day. And what are our areas we can grow in? And what are our strengths? Like focus on that, because that's why you have that gift and that talent and you're able to make a difference. But within that, the team always has to come first. So the goal should be to be our very, very best every single day. And then at the end of the day, okay, team first, team above me all day long. And as long as we do that, you might have to wait your turn. I did. My first Olympic championship game, I had split with another right fielder, Deanna Harris, and she got the call, the gold medal game. And so I was a substitute. Every inning, I tell people I would run up and down that line, working out in case coach called me to run, to hit, whatever he needed me to do. And I didn't get the call that game. But when that gold medal, was won and the last out was recorded, I was every bit a part of that team. Sometimes you have to play a role. The next Olympics, I was in every inning, and so there's different times and different roles, but literally it has to be all about the team first.
Right. Now, give me that first Olympic experience, some of the, not necessarily behind the scenes things, but it's the idea of, okay, what's the first thing you get off the plane and you go, what do we do now? Where are we going? We're going to Olympic Village. We're going through town. What does that feel like?
Well, so it was a little different for the first Olympics because it was actually in Georgia. Atlanta hosted, but we were in Columbus, Georgia. So we actually moved to Columbus 4 months earlier, and so we could get used to the heat, the humidity, the area. So we actually had a huge advantage in that situation. And we just trained there near where we would just be competing for the gold medal. And so, but I still think as soon as the Olympics started, we went to opening ceremonies. That was just this eye-opening experience of like, whoa, like look at this is truly the world stage. We had kind of been in our little softball bubble, and now we're seeing all the athletes. And then we kind of went to the Olympic Village for a little bit just to kind of see what that'll look like. But then we headed back to our village at Fort Benning, where we stayed, where again, they just hosted softball because we were too far from Atlanta. And so getting to that field and driving into that stadium and will never forget the first, inning. We were playing against Puerto Rico, first Olympic game. My heart, I'm in right field. My heart is pounding outside of my chest, like more than any nerves before, right? Butterflies are a good thing,
Right.
but it was more than ever. And I'll never forget, Lisa Fernandez pitched about 2 pitches, and all of a sudden this calm and this peace came over me, and this thought ran through my head. It's the same game you've been playing since you're a little girl.
Right.
And so
Right.
I've never forgotten that. I tell people that all the time because, I'd played, like we just talked about, like in national championships, on the college stage, which was a huge deal, winning a national championship at college. I mean, I thought it doesn't even get any better than this. And then here I was representing the United States of America. And I realized, okay, this is the ultimate honor. I mean, I am so blessed to be beside these women who are truly the best in the entire world. I never necessarily viewed myself that way, but it was like, I'm going to give everything I have to get that gold medal for our country.
And then this was, for people who don't remember, that was the Olympics where Janet Evans takes the flame and gives to Muhammad Ali, and everybody starts crying. And I remember that. It was insane. So, so now you're ensconced in all that. You've settled down. Lisa Fernandez says, "Okay, I'm doing this. We're cool." Where does that emotion go now that you've got the gold medal? Now that you've won, you've secured everything, medal stand, the whole 9 yards. What I've accomplished something.
Yeah. So for me, yes, that whole Olympics, I mean, I remember there was like rain delays, and that was almost the worst, the waiting part, and then we get out and get to play. And one of the neatest things too, playing in Columbus, Georgia, were the 9,000 fans cheering for us, wearing the red, white, and blue. Like, to be in your own country doing that was truly amazing. Right. To have everybody supporting you. I mean, they're all there for you. So that was awesome. So for me, I actually headed back home to Southern California. I kind of went home a few days early, and so the Olympics were actually still going on. So I'm walking on the beach and with some friends, and I just want a gold medal. And of course, I'm gonna have a big name. You talk about Janet Evans, people that everybody knows. And my friend says, "Oh, some random people on the beach, she just won a gold medal." And they're like, "Yeah, okay, sure."
It's on TV. How could she done that, right?
I know, no, really, I did. But for me, I had the opportunity to go back, and I had one more season at University of Arizona. So that was very neat to come back. And I'll tell you, like, you win a gold medal with this Olympic team. Our oldest player is 34 years old now. And a number of them in their 30s, late 20s, and I'm still in college. But when I went back, it kind of was like, okay, now that mindset. I'll never forget going to train and the first workouts, doing the stadiums and having to run the whole stadium. And I came back, and our strength coach, Carla Garrett, she was an Olympian in track and field. And so I ended up finishing first, and she looks to me and she says, "I see you." And I'm like thinking, what do you mean? Like, what? And she said, "I expected you to come back with that gold medal and just sit back and be like, I'm good." And I was like, no, it's the opposite. Like, I have the gold medal. I'm a senior. Like, I need to lead by example, and I want everyone to follow. I want to finish my last collegiate career with, another national championship. And we were able to do that season.
It's almost as if you have something to prove, not to anybody else, but more to yourself. It's like, okay, I was able to do this, and now I need to be able to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't get there by accident. I mean, really, I think there's just that internal drive. That was one of the things. I mean, even at the collegiate level, like how many athletes are playing, like there's just a whole nother level. But then to go to the Olympic level, these women are so self-driven. I mean, every day you didn't have to tell anybody. I mean, if anything, we were probably trying to do extra that needed to be done. Like, everybody internally had that drive that was like, I need to do more because I don't want to leave any stone unturned. Like, I want to be able to go in 100% and not doubt one thing and question one thing, that I could have done something more to try to be the very best.
Well, and you get to that point and you're driven and you're doing everything. And then there comes that day that it comes into every athlete's life. You go, I'm not going to be softball Olympian person now. What happens? What when you make that, because I've talked to a lot of people, and some of them, like, I still don't realize that it's happened. I'm one of them. Like, I'm not 20 years old anymore. Really? How did that happen? I know. But it's the idea of, okay, now that I have to do something else, what do I do? I've been that person for so long.
Yes. So just a kind of a quick, so I went back to my senior year. We won the national championship. I went back to Team USA, went to the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia. We came back from losing 3 games, won the gold medal. Just, that was a crazy Olympics. Then I took a summer off, and I had been married in 1999. So my husband and I were like, I wanted to be a mom, but I also wanted to play softball. So I thought, I'm going to try both. So I had my son Jake in 2001. And then when he was 3 years old, I won my last gold medal in Athens, Greece. And you talk about learning to balance and juggle life and motherhood and, you know, be the best as an athlete when you have all these young, unbelievable superstars coming up behind you. And so, you know, there were just a lot of different things. So now, you know, all of a sudden, okay, I'm 29 years old. I have 3 Olympic gold medals. And you're right. Like, I knew, okay, I'm done. And like, I just, you know, even that passion and that joy in a sense for my everyday competition and workout and training, like I just knew it was done. I was ready to change and shift gears. I knew I wanted to be a mom again. I knew I wanted to have more kids. And it's crazy, but all of a sudden, like I just started having this passion, you know, and faith is very important to me. So I feel like God definitely put this on my heart, but really just this drive to want to speak and to share and to encourage others, because, you know, one of the probably biggest honors ever was, competing for the USA in the 2000 Olympics. And I ended up being one of 8 athletes that Kellogg's sponsored and ended up having some of us on the back of a cereal box. And they said, it's not the superstar, not Wheaties superstar athlete, right, that everybody knows. It was the boy and the girl next door. And so I took that, to me, like that's a huge honor, because to me, like that's more realistic. Like, you know, not all of us are necessarily born with being the fastest or the strongest. And I wasn't any of those things. But I have 3 Olympic gold medals because I played my part and I brought what I did have to the table. And so this idea to go speak and to encourage others and I, you know, and so that has been part of what I've done. I know we'll get into that a little bit of kind of the shift, but that became this desire to go into speaking.
And so now we're at the point where like, okay, I want to do something more, not necessarily more important, but looking at, I have a family, I have a idea of where I want to go. How do you get that off the ground?
Well, so I thought I was going to be a teacher originally. I went to school to be a teacher, and I was going to be, you know, do PE and health and, you know, and have my summers, you know, thinking I'll be active. And when I was at Arizona, one of the things that we would do is as college athletes would help with our winter camps and our summer camps. And I fell in love, which is partly why I chose to go into teaching and PE, because I was like, I love working with these, you know, these athletes and, you know, showing them how to do this. And so that kind of, I thought I would get into the classroom. Well, I realized, okay, in Southern California, I had to still take some extra classes because I got my degree in Arizona, and it just kind of morphed into its own thing. I did a little bit of substitute teaching. A couple years later, I ended up being asked to coach at the local high school. So I went, and I wasn't teaching at that time, but I did do some coaching a couple seasons at the local high school. I started giving lessons. I actually did this throughout my training as well. Would do lessons for the athletes. I did a lot of clinics. I started traveling the country and giving softball clinics on weekends. And so I kind of had this grouping of things. But again, the speaking was kind of more connecting and letting people know, like, hey, you know, and schools would ask me to come and share. And so it kind of almost like organically happened, where I didn't necessarily have to like make this position. At one point I thought about, do I make an LLC? Do I go in and try to be, but I had enough stuff that was keeping me busy that it just worked for me just to continue to, you know, just do things as they came.
Okay. So we're in the mode of now I'm a business, or now I'm
Well, so I was busy. I was traveling. I would get asked to do clinics, and then I would get asked to do, you know, so my most consistent, I would say, would be the coaching for the 3 months. Not long after that, my kids were, you know, my youngest was, I think, 5 years old. I got asked to go for the summer and coach the Pride, the USSSA Pride, the Florida Pro team. There's a small pro league for fast pitch softball. And so I did that one summer. And what I found was just these different opportunities of like me not having anything full time.
Whoa.
ESPN actually called and asked if I would come do some commentating. Then not long, a couple years after that was when I got to the World Series for Westwood One. And so literally it kind of happened to me, as opposed to me saying, here's exactly what I'm going to do. I tried for a little period of time, like making some calls, some contacts. That kind of just fizzled out. It was more what was coming to me and responding, where for me it worked.
I think what, for most of the athletes I've spoken to, it's kind of like that. I went from being laser focused to knowing exactly what I wanted to do to having no idea what's about to happen to me. But as long as I continue on that same path and keep doing things the same mentality, things work out.
Well, yes. And I think that's the idea. Like, I have some teammates who went into college coaching. And like I said, that one summer for those 3 months, I'm committed to this. Everything's given to this. You know, I have a teammate who's a firefighter. Well, obviously there's the training and then the schedule, and then you go into work and you're a firefighter. My situation was a little different, but I have to say, like, I had a couple opportunities to coach collegiate softball. For me, I just knew one of the biggest things, knowing my parents and how they poured into me and how important that was, that I really wanted to be with my boys. I have 3 boys. So I ended up having my next son that summer after I retired, and then had another one a year and a half later. And so I have 3 boys. And so I knew I wanted to be home as much as possible. And I think you just kind of have to decide what works for your family and what your goals are, because that was kind of the priority I wanted in my life. So if I was able to do these other things that fit that priority, that was what I was going to go for the most. If it was more of a priority for me to have a full-time job, then I would have been seeking something in this arena. And then that would work. And I ended up actually, when my oldest was in 1st grade, I ended up homeschooling him. So I've actually homeschooled as well for 13 years. So, and I laugh because as an athlete, like I told you, I was a pitcher and a first baseman. And then I got moved to the outfield in college, which is what opened the Olympic door for me. And I was just versatile wherever they needed me, moving around. Okay, where does the team need me? I feel like in my life, in my career, literally that's what it's been. Hey, okay, I'm going to go speak at this school. Awesome. Okay, who's my audience? I want to pour into them. Or I'm going to go coach this high school softball team. Okay, let me tell you all my skills. Or I'm going to go conduct a clinic. Okay, I'm going to give you, I'm going to teach you the game, but I'm going to encourage you while we're doing this. And, I'm going to go speak at this church, and I'm going to share kind of my story in that area. So it would be all different things, business speaking. I mean, anything that would come, it was like, okay, the heart of success, hard work, being a good teammate, being coachable, all of those concepts and characteristics, that's true across the board, no matter what we're doing. Like you said, we transfer that into the next stage. Are we doing it to the best of our ability? Are we people that, are approachable and can make a difference, whatever our area of influence is? And so that really is my heart. Wherever I go, whatever doors open, like, I want to inspire others, and I want to be the best I can be no matter what I'm doing.
And to that end, how do you use your faith to bring those ideas around?
Yeah. And so I've been, involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, is on a lot of high school, at a lot of high schools. And so I've spoken at different events that they've put on. So it's neat to see like some of these high school athletes getting these awards, and then being able to be the speaker that night and kind of share, the path that I was able to take and how important that was. Because again, just a foundation of character and choices and, and having hope always and overcoming the hardest times. I mean, so it's such a powerful foundation. And then through that as well, I've gone into other things, and faith isn't any part of it. And yet again, the message is still one of encouragement. Right. And so I think too, for people, is just to be true to who you are, because it is who I am. And I don't, again, I don't have to it doesn't have to be about that, but I also don't have to never feel, so worried to just be able to share hope and encouragement. And so, right. So I do a lot with, with them, with Athletes in Action is an organization that I've been inducted into the Hall of Champions and the Hall of Faith with those 2 organizations. Such an honor. And so just being able to have some of those connections. And I mean, recently with COVID and everything, I was, speaking to some female athletes in Ukraine, because someone I know works for FCA there. She's in her 20s and she works for them. And so I was just able to encourage these athletes, female athletes in the Ukraine. I've had to have an interpreter, but how amazing is that? I went to Cuba last year and the year prior. I worked with softball players there, but I was able to tie in my faith and just say, you guys are so loved and you're so valued. And I'm from another country, but I want you to know how loved you are. Things like that. We brought some softballs over there. I went over there. They're playing with softballs that are literally taped up. So I came back, people donated. I was able to take a bunch of softballs over, and that's the kind of stuff is make the bigger difference.
It's funny. I did an interview with a young man from Cameroon who
Okay.
he's 17 years old, and he has actually started his own baseball and softball club in the Cameroon.
That's amazing.
And I said, well, how did you get involved? I saw baseball and I love it. So he is the coach of the little kids in his community, with the boys playing baseball and the girls playing softball. And basically he's just using the same kind of networking to find equipment, to find training, to find whatever he can. And I'm like, this is a great story. And I, like you said, I did the interview with him, and I'm not speaking the same language. I said, okay, he's typing what he's saying, and I just had to put the subtitles in. But I had to hear his voice because, like, this is incredible.
Yes, that's amazing. And I love that. And that's what I love about sports, because I'll tell you, at the Olympic Games, I think that was the neatest thing to me, was just to be around athletes. I mean, granted, you know, obviously everybody had to qualify from their different areas, but to be a true world event, one of my favorite places at the Olympic Village was the cafeteria. One, you had every kind of food there was, but it was a time to kind of be around other athletes that were getting their food, and just sit at some tables with people from around the world and just hear some of their stories.
Right.
I mean, truly, it's such a blessing, because you're like, this is so much bigger than the sport, you know, like those experiences you take away, it really does impact you.
And that's one of the things that we like to see. It's like, okay, you're in this bubble, but you're not in the bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Like, you know, I loved, you know, just hearing some of their stories. Also, you know, at the Olympic Village, they had like a faith center. So all the different faiths, you could go in like their different rooms, and it was available to all of them. So I found kind of the Christian group or whatever. And a lot of them were tied in with Athletes in Action, the ministry that actually impacted me in college. And so here I was with these people from Africa. They had some of their delegation there, some of the athletes, you know, Canada, you know, just all like different athletes from different parts of the world. And in that sense, it was like a whole nother level, because then we were like praying together, and I'm like, I mean, this is unbelievable. You know, you just, again, so many experiences. It was the bigger picture. And that's why, even, you know, with everything going on in this world, I have been so grateful, because through sports, like all that outside stuff falls off, and everybody's allowed to unite and go out and to respect each other and compete together. And I love the beauty of bringing that together. And I know that's something that the Olympics has always stood for, but
Right.
To me, truly in my life, like that's how I want to live. I want everyone to know they have a place and they matter, and there's a purpose for their life.
Well, I think I learned at a young age that we all have our own agenda, and
Yes.
no one can say they don't. But when your agenda is not bigger than the team agenda or the global agenda or whatever, and you say, if my agenda fits in with everybody else's, I'm going to be a much better person for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. I think we need to constantly look at the bigger picture and kind of take that step back. And, you know, traveling for me, first with the USA softball team, I'll tell you, I ended up, when I was 19 years old, it was my first USA team that I made. And we went to Guatemala, and we went there, and there were 22 of us women. And I was just so excited to be on the team. Like, I can't believe I made the team, you know. We're out playing on these fields where there's, you know, cows where you're warming up, and there's literally the worst field you've ever played on. And you're like, I hope this ball doesn't hit me in the face. There's like gunshots going on in the streets. There's people with like machine guns like protecting us, and the guy's probably like 18 years old. You know, as we're driving on the bus, we're inside this one facility. We had cold water and one shower for 22 women for 12 days. And then little kids would come out. We gave them these little American flags in their house with no running water, this little shack on the end of our field at the top of the hill. So by the end, we're giving them our blankets, and we're trying to get, and we wish we could take these little ones home with us. I mean, we don't want them to leave their family, but you want to give them opportunity and a better life, you know? And I came back from that trip, and my heart, like, I was like, I want to never forget, and I want to always be grateful for warm, clean water. And that, like, traveling this world, I go to an orphanage in Mexico. I mean, because here's what I will say. We all have different circumstances, right? But when you are loving and kind and you show you care, that transcends language barriers. That your smile to them, your hug to them. I went to Dominican Republic not too long ago. I mean, again, like, we want to give the world, but I will tell you this. Sometimes it's actually the opposite. You go to these places, and some of the team players I've taken have literally come back like silent, because they're like, they have nothing and they are way more joyful. We have everything and it's not. And so to me, like it just has helped me to be grateful and have a whole different perspective. And so what you said, I think we got to have that team perspective, that bigger, the bigger picture, and not look at it just me. That's where we start to have a lot of problems.
Well, I think at that, we'll leave it at that, because that is perfect. That is inspirational. And I want to thank you for sharing your stories. I want to thank you for filling the void that we're not going to have, unfortunately, for the Olympics this year. I think it's sad, but I understand why. And I think it's the best decision we could have made. But again, I'm going to miss having that. But it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, because I know that all of us, for me, I love hearing other people's stories. So I hope that this encourages other people as well.
Well, thank you once again.